I told my husband I got fired. I thought he'd hug me. Instead, he said, "I knew you'd fail eventually." That's when I realized this wasn't just a test. He had been planning to erase me all along. Asterisk, the moment I told Daniel I got fired, he barely blinked. No hug, no shock, just silence. And then, without even looking up from his laptop, he said, "Honestly, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner." I stood there frozen, still in my work heels, the evening sun, casting long shadows behind me as if even the light was recoiling from what I'd just heard. My hand clenched the strap of my purse like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I had imagined this scene so many times in my head, Daniel dropping everything, wrapping his arms around me, saying, "It's okay, baby. We'll figure it out. We're in this together." But that man, that version of him, he didn't live here anymore. And maybe he never had. The truth was, I hadn't been fired. I had been promoted. Senior strategy lead, the highest-ranking woman in my department. Years of late nights, skipped holidays, quiet sacrifice. Finally noticed, but on the walk home that evening, something pulled at me. Something I couldn't ignore. Daniel had been acting off, distant, cold. The man who used to hold my hand under the table during dinner parties hadn't touched me in weeks, so I tested him. I wanted to know if he'd stand by me when things got hard. If I lost everything, would I still be enough for him? And he failed that test in less than 10 seconds. "Do you realize the position you've put me in?" he snapped, slamming the laptop closed. "We just renewed the lease. You think I can carry everything on my salary alone?" He didn't ask if I was okay, didn't ask what happened, didn't even ask if I was telling the truth, just rage. Instant, vicious rage. He started pacing, voice sharp. "You've always acted like you were smarter than everyone. Maybe this'll humble you a little." I opened my mouth to speak but nothing came out. It was like my body knew before my brain did. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just watch. Because that silence, it saved me. If I'd told him the truth that I was now making nearly double what he was, I never would have seen what came next. And that moment changed everything. That night, Daniel slept on the couch without a word. I lay in our bed, wide-eyed, staring at the ceiling. Every inhale felt sharp. Every thought burned. There had been signs. I just hadn't wanted to see them. The canceled date nights. The guarded way he held his phone. The way he started making jokes at my expense when we were with friends. Jokes that left me smiling through clenched teeth. And now I was beginning to realize it wasn't just about the lie I told. Something else was going on. Something dark. And if I didn't start listening to that voice in my gut, I was going to drown in it. 2 months before that night, I came home early from work. A rare Friday winter campaign wrapped early, and I thought, I'll surprise Daniel. Make pasta, open that wine we've been saving, light the good candles. I walked in through the back door. Quietly, the house was dim, no music, no TV. And then I heard his voice, down the hallway. On the phone, I froze. His tone was different. Not the easygoing Daniel I knew. It was sharp, businesslike, cold. "She doesn't know anything yet," he said. Pause, then, just a little more time. Silence, then laughter. Not his usual warm laugh. This one was cruel, empty. My throat tightened. I didn't hear the other voice, but I didn't need to. That sentence was enough. He was talking about me. I backed away slowly, slipping into the kitchen just in time to boil the water before he came in. He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. I smiled back like everything was fine. But something inside me cracked that night. Not loud, not obvious, just a tiny fracture. But once it starts, it spreads. After the fake firing, Daniel acted like I was invisible. "No, how are you holding up? No, do you need help with your resume?" Nothing, just tension. Like I had become an inconvenience, a bad investment. I started watching him differently after that. The way he left the room when I picked up my phone. The way he locked his computer the second I entered, the way he whispered on calls, then changed the subject when I walked in. But I said nothing, because I needed more, and then I got it. 1 week after the fake firing, Daniel left for a last-minute site inspection. He forgot his laptop and it was unlocked. My heart hammered as I opened the screen. I didn't even have to dig. The tabs were right there. Emails, messages, drafts. Clara's almost ready. Once Leela's out of the house, we'll file for the transfer. Just remind your mother the house will be under your name before August. Play sympathetic. Make her feel like it's her idea. I couldn't breathe. Clara. The name hit me like ice water. She was an old friend of his sister's. Someone he dated briefly before we met. I hadn't thought of her in years. Now she was pregnant with his child, or at least, that's what he thought. That night, I stood in the shower until the water ran cold. My husband wasn't just planning to leave me, he was planning to erase me, and I had a choice: break quietly, or burn everything down. I chose fire. After that night, I stopped guessing. I stopped hoping. I started documenting every email, every receipt, every shared expense from the last 10 years. Not because I was ready to fight, but because I knew the war had already started and I'd walked into it unarmed. Daniel thought I was broken. He thought I was sitting at home in my pajamas, wallowing, Googling job boards and watching daytime TV. But I was working, quietly, strategically, from a friend's guest room, from cafes, from the office, because yes, I was still employed, still promoted, still thriving. I was just hiding that success until I could use it. Then came the day everything snapped. It was Wednesday. He didn't know I was home. Didn't know I'd taken the day off to meet a lawyer. He walked in through the front door, and he wasn't alone. A second voice followed him. One I recognized instantly, even though it curdled my blood every time I heard it. His mother, Lydia, always dressed like she was attending a funeral, always talking like she was delivering a sermon. I heard them enter, chatting casually like it was a regular visit. But it wasn't. They didn't know I was in the guest room door, slightly cracked, silent as air. And then I heard it. "She bought it," Daniel said. "Totally wrecked. Just like you said she would be." My body stiffened. Finally, Lydia sighed. "Now we can talk about the house, and the trust. She's got nothing. No job, no power." "Exactly," Daniel replied. "She's leaning on me now. She folds." My blood ran cold. "I still say you should have married Clara in the first place," Lydia added. "That one Leela, she was never right for you. Always chasing careers and titles. Clara is grounded, family-oriented." I pressed my hand against my mouth, holding in the scream that wanted to rise. They were treating my life like it was some corporate strategy meeting. As if my 10 years of loyalty, of late nights cooking dinners while he built his career, of sitting beside him through his anxiety, through his business losses meant nothing. "Clara says the baby's due in December," Lydia continued. "Like it was some gift from God. This time next year, you'll have your own family. Your real family." Daniel chuckled. "Once Leela's out, we'll do the quiet divorce. I'll say it's mutual. Offer her a little something, make it seem like her decision. And then Lydia sweet, I Spained," Lydia said. "And if she doesn't agree?" A pause. Then Daniel's voice dropped low, precise. "Then, we paint her as unstable. Say she couldn't handle the job loss. Say she's erratic. I've got those old texts she sent when she had that panic attack in 2021. We used those." I felt my knees give out. The walls, the floors, the furniture, everything around me started to blur. He was going to weaponize my mental health. Use the lowest, most human moment of my life against me for Clara. For that baby. A baby I wasn't even sure was his. They left after an hour. I didn't move. I stayed curled on the floor of the guest room, heart numb, mind racing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I planned. That night, Daniel made dinner. He lit candles, played music, acted like we were healing, reconnecting. I played along. He asked how I was holding up. I gave him a small, tired smile. He poured me wine. I drank it. He had no idea that earlier that day, I'd already spoken to Monica Holt, one of the sharpest family attorneys in the city. He had no idea that the papers were already being drawn. That I'd quietly compiled every financial contribution I'd made to the house, from remodeling the kitchen to the down payment on the car he now drove like it was his alone. He had no idea that I had photos, proof, voice memos, backups, logs, because he wanted to go to war, and I was ready. 3 days later, the real show began. He came home with a box of croissants and a fake smile. "I've been thinking, maybe we should talk about the future." I nodded, eyes wide, voice soft. "Sure." He laid it out gently, almost tenderly. "I think we've both changed. And with you being in transition right now." Transition? I nearly laughed. "I just think maybe this is a natural moment for both of us to reevaluate. You deserve to be happy. I want that for you." I let my eyes mist up. "You're saying divorce?" He nodded slowly. But mutual, no need for lawyers. We can keep it fair. I'll help you get back on your feet. Maybe give you a bit of cash for a fresh start. He smiled. Like a man offering a hand to someone falling overboard, not realizing I had built a lifeboat weeks ago, and was just waiting for him to jump. I let the silence sit between us for a moment. Then, softly, "That's really generous, Daniel. I'll think about it." He exhaled, relieved, triumphant. He thought he'd won. And that was the moment I knew I had him exactly where I wanted him. The next morning, I left early. Daniel was still asleep, sprawled across the bed like a man who had finally solved a hard equation. He didn't know I was headed straight to Monica Holt's law office, with a folder of receipts, statements, and voice memos zipped tight in my bag. I didn't cry. I didn't feel broken. I felt sharp. Like I was made of glass and steel. Monica listened carefully as I laid out the situation, leaving out the affair, the baby, the emotional betrayal. For now, she didn't need the drama, she needed the facts. "How long were you married?" 10 years, but we were together too before that. "Children?" "No." "Proof of contributions to the house?" "Everything's in here," I said, sliding the folder toward her. She flipped through the documents with surgeon-like precision. Invoices for the new AC unit I paid for. Receipts from the master bathroom remodel. Emails confirming wire transfers from my personal savings into our joint account. Her brows lifted slightly. "He told you the house is in his name. His father left it to him, but I've paid for half the renovations. Does he want you to leave?" He offered a settlement. 3 months' rent and a smile. Monica set down the folder. "Leela, you have a case, a strong one, but if we move forward, you need to know he's going to fight dirty." I looked her in the eye. "He already is." That evening, I came home with groceries. Cooked dinner. Laughed at Daniel's stories. Kissed his cheek. Played my part. And when he asked if I'd thought more about the divorce, I gave a weak smile and said, "I just want things to be fair." His eyes gleamed. He thought I was folding. But I was just building the final act of a story he didn't know he was starring in. By the following week, Monica had filed the papers, and Daniel started unraveling. At first it was subtle. "You got a lawyer?" "Of course I did," I said sweetly. "Why?" "You said you wanted it to be fair, remember?" He tried to charm me, then pressure me, then guilt me. But I didn't budge because what he didn't know was that I'd already exposed him. I'd given Monica a full recording of his conversation with Lydia, the one where he planned to fake instability, use my old texts as evidence, and gaslight me into surrendering the house. And Monica, she was a shark in lipstick. She added a restraining clause to the divorce filing. Any use of mental health manipulation or fabricated accusations would be grounds for court escalation with evidence already submitted. When Daniel got the formal paperwork, he panicked. "What is this? What is all this legal jargon?" "It's protection," I said. "From who?" "From you." His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to the corner, where his briefcase sat like he was calculating escape routes. But I wasn't done. "I know about Clara," I said calmly. "I know about the baby. I know about your plan with your mother. And I know I was never supposed to find out." He tried to lie. He always did. "Clara." "What?" She's just a friend. You're paranoid, Leela. You need help." I stepped closer, set my phone on the table. Pressed play, his voice. "She doesn't suspect anything yet. The baby's due in December." Once Leela's out, the color drained from his face. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just said, "You thought I'd break. You didn't think I'd listen." The next 2 weeks were chaos. Daniel hired a lawyer, his old college buddy, who thought fast talk and ego would undo everything. They tried to argue the house was Daniel's inheritance, but Monica came with bank logs, detailed statements, side-by-side comparisons, showing every dollar I spent on that property. She even had floor plans marked with receipts. That cabinet mine. That chandelier mine. That smart thermostat he bragged about, also mine. The court didn't award me half the house, but they did award me the investment value plus emotional damages. After Monica submitted the transcript of Daniel's plan to fabricate mental instability, the judge called it coercive manipulation. I called it justice. By the time we finalized the divorce, Daniel couldn't even look at me. Clara never came to court. But I heard through Emily, my closest friend and safe harbor through all of this, that she'd quietly moved in a few days later. Apparently, the baby was indeed Mark's, Daniel's, late brother. And Lydia, well, she still sends Christmas cards. To Clara, the night after the settlement was signed, I moved into a quiet loft on the East End. High ceilings, large windows, a tiny balcony with just enough space for a chair and a cup of tea. I slept with the curtains open and the lights on. Not out of fear, but because no one could tell me not to anymore. Daniel had built a trap, and I let him walk straight into it. Because when someone tests your worth by how broken you are when they betray you, you show them what real strength looks like. And now, when I pass by the old neighborhood, I don't flinch. Because he lost everything trying to replace me. 3 months later, I stood outside the old house one last time, not as a wife, not as a woman begging for respect, but as a survivor who had made sure the truth carved its place into every wall they tried to repaint over. Daniel no longer lived there. He and Clara moved out after the sale. They'd tried to keep it. Tried to bluff their way through an appeal. But Monica was faster. She brought in the property value appraisers. Filed a lien for my share. And when Daniel couldn't pay the full amount, the house had to go. I didn't buy it, but I did make sure that the real estate listing included the words, "Recently remodeled with contributions from both previous owners," because history doesn't get rewritten. That is a lie. I haven't seen him since. He didn't fight again after the court decision. Didn't send angry texts. Didn't try to fix things once the public embarrassment started to grow. Because the thing about people like Daniel is, they only love power, and once you take it from them, they're hollow. A man like that doesn't miss you. He misses the control. Clara. From what Emily told me, the fairy tale faded fast. Apparently, it's harder to build a future on stolen pieces. Money got tight. Daniel's business suffered when Monica's firm quietly flagged his company in a few professional circles. She never even had to mention the divorce, just hinted at ethics concerns. Word travels fast in this city, especially when you've spent a decade making enemies and thinking they were friends. But this isn't about him, it never really was. It's about me, the woman who once flinched at her own strength, who stayed quiet because she didn't want to be difficult, who carried the weight of a household on her shoulders and still got called a burden. That woman is gone now. In her place is someone who rebuilt, brick by brick. I moved into a sunlit apartment near the river, not luxurious, not massive, but mine. The walls are filled with framed quotes and photos of people who stayed when things fell apart. Emily comes over every Sunday, with wine and her latest dating horror stories. We laugh until we can't breathe. Sometimes, I go walking past the courthouse, not to gloat, but to remind myself how far I came. Because healing isn't a destination, it's a series of tiny choices, to get up, to keep going, to speak up. To never shrink again. Last month, I stood on a stage at my company's annual summit. I'd just been promoted again, this time to Senior Director of Operations, the youngest woman to hold the title in our firm's history. I talked about systems and growth and accountability. But then, at the end, I said something I hadn't planned. Sometimes, we think rock bottom is the end, but if you survive it, you realize it was just the ground floor of your comeback. The room went still, and then they clapped. Not because I was successful, but because I had returned from something they didn't see. Most people don't. That's the thing about private betrayal. It's silent, invisible, and it lives in the walls of your life until you finally scream loud enough to break them down. Daniel once said, "I'd never make it without him." He said I didn't understand the world, that I was too soft, emotional, too much. He called me dramatic when I cried, called me cold when I didn't. He had a name for every version of me, except the one who fought back. That one, he never saw coming. So if you're reading this, listening to this, feeling the weight of your own unraveling, let me tell you something. They only win if you let them write your ending. And you are not done. You are not broken. You are not what they said you were. You are becoming.